Hello dear Sony friends and to everyone who wants to become a Sony fanboy or girl. It's time to review the Sony 85mm 1.4G Master lens today. This great lens will cost you about 1800 USD. I borrowed it from my favorite camera store in Frankfurt, gm-foto. Yes, let's start with the body itself. The good piece weighs 820 grams, which is 1.8 pounds, and is therefore heavier than the body of the Sony a7 III. The lens is so huge because of its 1.4 aperture, because a lot of light has to pass through it. On the side you can switch between manual and autofocus. The focus hold button is just above. On the other side you will find the aperture click switch. You can set whether you want to hear the click or rest every time the aperture is adjusted. Or whether you can change the aperture continuously without resting. Alternatively, you can simply leave the settings on A and set the aperture via the camera's menu. The focus ring runs very softly, ideal for filmmakers. I may be mistaken, but I found almost no chromatic aberrations. Every now and then you can spot a magenta shimmer on the edges and fonts, but it is so minimal that it is hardly noticeable. You're welcome to download these files also in RAW. The link can be found in the video description. Vignetting is one of the common phenomena with such focal length and apertures. This is almost completely eliminated with the Sony 85mm 1.4G Master lens. So yes, vignetting does exist, but if you use the automatic correction in Adobe Lightroom, you will have this fixed in less than 5 seconds. So an excellent performance. It looks very different with lens flares. However, only if you hold the lens directly into the sun or another light source. In an indirect angle or with the lens hood, you have no problems with flaring at all. It's time to look at the sharpness. You pay 1800 US dollars for this lens, and for the money you actually get a lot. Because this lens is already super sharp at f1.4. Sure, you don't see much of the foreground or background, but wherever you set the focus, this point will be super sharp. You can convince yourself with some files provided in the video description below. I used to have the Canon 85mm 1.2 L lens, and the reason why this lens didn't make me happy was the slow autofocus. Years later, cameras became mirrorless and a lot of things changed. The autofocus is extremely fast, the tracking runs smoothly. However, the closer you are to the camera, the longer it takes to focus. Otherwise, the camera takes less than 1 second to focus from the foreground to the background, even while the aperture is wide open. If you need a lens in your camera bag, then this one here. At least if you primarily make portraits. I had the lens with me at a wedding recently and I was thrilled. The focal length is ideal to be a little closer to the action than with a 50mm and much lighter than a 70 to 200mm lens. With a 1.4 aperture you don't have to push the ISO in the church too much, and you can completely isolate the model from the foreground or background. You can use this lens to focus on certain details with the 1.4 aperture, whether you're at a portrait shoot or taking pictures of a product, or out in the nature. You can set the spot wherever you like. The lens provides the sharpness by default. What a lens! As always, we come to the best part at the end. As you can imagine, the bokeh is excellent with an aperture of 1.4 and this focal length. Very soft and round bokeh balls make every portrait photographer's heartbeat faster. Let's make a cut here. An absolutely brilliant lens for weddings and portrait photographers. It is also an absolute must-have lens for filmmakers and bokeh fans. Sure, $1,800 is not exactly cheap, but the lens should last for the next 10 years or more. Of course, it would be nice if you could get closer to the object than 80 centimeters, which is 2.62 feet. But well, you can't have everything. If this review has not convinced you, you can convince yourself. Just borrow the lens before buying it or download the files provided in the video description below. All the best from Frankfurt and see you soon. Tschüss!